Our political editor, Gary Gibbon, is with me now. Gary.
Well, as you say, overnight we have this leak from a paper that's been sent over to Brussels suggesting there could be, in Britain's mind, customs clearance centres, maybe 5-10 miles back from the border in Northern Ireland. And the government waded in and said, well, no, that's not our plan. It then transpired in interviews that the Prime Minister did that he did think that there would be customs checks of some kind. Now, I think he thinks there can be something like roving spot checks that happen, no infrastructure, but I think it's fair to say that if you're talking to people in Dublin, they are not wildly impressed by this. I'm going to paraphrase what Leo Varadkar, the Taoiseach, said in the Dáil now, but the spirit, I think, of what he was saying was, please, please, if you're about to send us your great big proposal, if you're about to do the great unveiling, please don't let it be anything like what we think it is, which is something with customs checks provided for on the island of Ireland. The mood in Brussels at the moment is pretty low as well in terms of whether there is a deal about to be negotiated. But they stand there ready, expecting to see something soon, expecting to go in what is called the tunnel when they go into secret negotiations. And we could find out about all of that quite soon. How is all this going to affect if he doesn't manage to put off a deal? How does it affect his popularity in the country, and whether all these slogans around us are actually going to work? Well, if there is no deal, if somehow he manages to come out of the EU with no deal, there are concerns amongst cabinet ministers that maybe the country isn't ready for the turbulence. He could suffer electorally there. Or if he crashes through the 31st October barrier, which he has promised he won't do, could he suffer for that? But you have to say at the moment, the polls are suggesting that he is picking up a bit of support for his strategy. And of course, when he's in front of the party faithful here tomorrow, he'll get a very, very warm reception.
In interviews this morning, the Prime Minister denied overnight reports that Britain, in a submission to Brussels known as a non-paper, was proposing a string of customs posts 5 to 10 miles away from the Northern Ireland border. But the Prime Minister also said customs checks on the island of Ireland were just the reality. The Irish Prime Minister pointedly welcomed what he claimed was Boris Johnson's complete rejection of the whole idea.
I do very much welcome Prime Minister Johnson's words today when he disowned and distanced himself from those non-papers. Had he not, in my view, it would have been hard evidence of bad faith on behalf of the British government.
The chances of the Irish and therefore the EU accepting customs clearance centres near the border are, I think, minimal, very, very close to zero. The EU has two basic principles. Firstly, don't do anything that provoke the return of terrorism. Secondly, protect the integrity of the single market and the customs union. And the British proposals don't satisfy the EU on either ground.
A drink for the Prime Minister between interviews.
What's this? Oop, oop, oop.
No disposable cups.
No disposable cups, an aide said. The EU has been told to expect Boris Johnson's master plan for Brexit any minute now. Government sources here say days of secret negotiations, the tunnel, as it's called in Brussels, would then start. Not everyone is so sure of that.
I think the tunnel could be very short if the UK proposals are similar to what we've heard that they may be today, involving controls near the border but not on the border. Then that's so far away from what the EU is prepared to accept that I don't think there'll be much of a negotiation at all. The EU will just say no.
In the hall, Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, got a warm reception for her hardline message on crime. Moments beforehand, police were called to an incident round the corner.
Simple mistake, no incident, nothing. I know that it's somebody's fault.
An MP, Sir Geoffrey Clifton Brown, was trying to get someone without the relevant pass into a coffee lounge. A disagreement with a member of staff trying to stop them coming in ended up with police officers being called and the MP being sent home by the party. The slogans of this conference, "Get Brexit done and we can get on with other stuff," were fused in the Home Secretary's appeal to voters.
From crime to immigration to leaving the European Union, we are ready to listen and do what they want.
40 miles east of Manchester, Wakefield. Labour since 1932. Are the messages Boris Johnson's pushing in Manchester swinging former Labour voters in critical seats like this one?
I'm just absolutely fed up with it and I wish it gets sorted. It's been going on far too long and we're a laughing stock, absolutely laughing stock in the world, I think.
I'd probably vote Conservative next time. Which goes against the grain, but that's how it is.
Boris, whether you like him or not, is so thick-skinned. And it needs somebody like that because whoever takes it, if he goes and somebody else goes, they're going to cave in. And 5 years later, we're still going to be the same.
I bet Theresa May sat home laughing her head off, thinking, right, you know, you got me out and now what are you going to do, like, you know.
Back in Manchester, visiting from Australia, a Boris Johnson fan.
Some people say Boris Johnson is our Trump.
There are worse things to be. Look, Boris Johnson is Britain's Prime Minister, and I think he is the right man for these hours.
Tomorrow in his speech, Boris Johnson will repeat the conference slogans. Populism to his opponents, unnerving to some still in the party. But he hopes an election-winning formula.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, the Prime Minister has been talking to almost all the television broadcasters today. Earlier, we caught up with him to ask why he had decided he wouldn't face questions from Channel 4 News.
Why aren't you going to give us an interview today, sir?
I have no idea. I'm afraid I haven't, of my pay grade. No idea.
I am joined, however, by Jacob Rees-Mogg, and it's our first chance to talk to him since he was appointed leader of the Commons, flew to Scotland to get the Queen's approval for unlawfully proroguing Parliament, and then watched it all unravel in what he's supposed to have called a constitutional coup. In a moment, I'll ask him what he thinks the new master plan is that will get Brexit done. But first, what do businesses and people actually living and working along the Irish north-south divide make of the suggestion that checks might take place perhaps between 5 or 10 miles away from the actual border? Our reporter Porrick O'Brien has spent the day in County Cavan and County Fermanagh, where a bridge separates the towns of Belcoo in the north and Blacklion in the Republic. He joins us live. Porrick.
Well, Chris, as you say, the border runs right through the middle of the bridge behind me. And as Gary was saying earlier, the government have been pouring cold water on this notion of a buffer zone of customs checks set back from the border here. But with every proposal and with every rebuttal of a proposal, dismay and confusion grows in the communities around the border here. As one local person put it to me today, aside from the intricacies around the negotiations, as far as people here are concerned, a border is a border is a border. A bridge over troubled border. At least it was back in the day, when a hard border ran through the centre of this bridge. The Republic of Ireland in one half, the United Kingdom in the other. And two villages on either end in different countries were loaded with the machinery of security and customs control. So I'm on the Blacklion Cavan Republic of Ireland side of the border on the bridge here, and it's really interesting talking to local people about their memories of a hard border, which weren't that long ago. So we basically, on the Republic side, there was a customs office, and also on the British side, in total about 15 or 20 customs officers. There was about 45 Garda Síochána, the Irish police, on one side, and of course a big British military presence on the other side of this bridge back in the day. Here's the border. I'm about to step over it, easy as that. Of course, the fear locally is that echoes of that old border machinery will re-emerge in the months to come. Seamus McGovern lived on the Republic of Ireland side, went to primary school on the UK side, walked through 4 customs postings every day as a child. His fear that the machinery of customs control becomes a target again.
The problem with a buffer zone is whether you have a customs post on the border or 10 miles away. From where I see it, it's still a hard border. The big fear is that, obviously when you have customs checks or security checks, you have targets. We'd all be afraid of going back to the dark old days, and that certainly would be my biggest fear.
I don't think
Margaret Macaulay remembers how relationships improved when the machinery of the border was dismantled on the bridge as a result of the peace process, and relationships between people improved. Since the border disappeared,
yes,
has the sort of relationship between the two villages changed or not?
just got better now. and there's more freedom.
When you heard about this buffer zone as one of the possible proposals, what did you think?
Well, I thought now it was a long shot because it's not going to work.
Why are you so sure about that?
Well, I just have this feeling that they're just grasping at straws.
It's close to impossible to find anyone in either village who supports the reinstatement of border controls. The closest you get to it, the philosophical take from Harold Johnston. People, according to him, will get used to a possible hard border, will adapt, people will dodge and dive. Smuggling will start again.
And they used to smuggle the Rayburn Trooters over.
They used to smuggle what?
Rayburn Trooter. You know, the Rayburn Trooters for the house.
Oh, really?
Ranges, big ranges, you know.
They used to smuggle ranges across on flat-bottom boats.
Flat-bottom boats.
Black Lion to Belcoo, only a few hundred yards, only a bridge between them. And to play with a famous quote, the longest bridge is the one where you don't know which side to turn your face for the Brexit.
Porrick O'Brien reporting. Well, joining me now is Stephen Kelly, the Chief Executive of Manufacturing Northern Ireland. What have you made of these proposals today that suggest there will have to be some sort of customs checks, whether they are posts near or away from the border?
Well, in 2017, when the Prime Minister and the EU actually agreed that Northern Ireland would be protected in all circumstances, that there wouldn't be any checks, controls or collection, the business community in Northern Ireland were greatly relieved. But what we've heard today is actually rowing back enormously from that commitment, and that's caused deep distress amongst the business community here in Northern Ireland.
But if the United Kingdom and Ireland have different customs standards, how can they be checked if there are no checks?
Well, this is the fundamental problem with Brexit. If the UK decides to leave the EU, leave the single market and customs union, then there has to be control somewhere. All the commitments have been given to us up until this point have been reneged upon, and that is a deep worry for businesses that trade across this border here and borders right across Northern Ireland.
Why is it not possible that this could be done in warehouses many, many miles away from the border?
Well, the commitment has been given that in all circumstances, how businesses trade today will be continuing beyond the Brexit end date. We know that the PSNI, for instance, have made it clear that any infrastructure at all would be deeply destabilising to the Northern Ireland community, that Brexit in that form doesn't have its consent, and in return the Northern Ireland economy is damaged and businesses are disrupted. What we need to do is get back around whatever days are available to ensure that all those costs and complexities that will destroy businesses, that destroy the jobs that rely upon those businesses, are removed, and ensure that we get a deal that's actually workable for the businesses here in Northern Ireland, as it should be for businesses throughout the UK.
Would you rather have a Northern Ireland only backstop and checks in the Irish Sea?
Well, the businesses that we represent here are very content with the prospect of a Northern Ireland only backstop. In fact, 94.4% of the manufacturing firms that we surveyed said that they were content with that deal. It ensures that we have frictionless trade north and south. It ensures that we have tariff-free, quota-free, rules of origin-free access into all those marketplaces. And indeed, in many respects, that gives Northern Ireland the best of both worlds. But what we're hearing today basically means that we have the worst of all worlds.